My name is Ann Russo, and I am part of the Communications Department for Douglas County School District. And welcome to this evening's Douglas County School District Parent University webinar. With the help of our partner, Skyridge Medical Center, the goal of these webinars is to provide relevant and timely content for our parents, students, and community. And the topic of tonight's Parent University is to discuss a substance use prevention pilot program for our middle schools. And tonight's panelists include Dr. Kelli Smith. She's the Director of Health, Wellness, and Prevention for the Student Services Department, Student Support Services Department. And we also have two amazing prevention nurses, I should say, from our school district, Shannon Johnson and Erika Raschkes. And the last person I would like to introduce is Alissa Huff. She is the Community Health Educator with Douglas County Health Department. And a quick note, after the entire presentation, we will be taking questions. So feel free to include those in the chat box or Q&A or raise your hand, and I'd be happy to help get answers for you. And I think that's it for my part, and I will just send it on over to our great panelists this evening.
All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and start. Thank you, Ann, for that introduction. I am Kelli Smith. I'm the Director of Health, Wellness, Prevention. I'm going to start us off tonight with a little bit of background. Oops. So I wanted to talk first about the purpose. So we applied for the School Health Professional Grant to support our middle school students in reducing risk factors that increase the chance of high-risk behaviors, and then to support protective factors that reduce the risk of high-risk behaviors. So I wanted to talk for a minute about what environmental risk and protective factors are. So when we're talking about our schools, some of the things that we really focus on to ensure that our students have these high-level protective factors, those would include positive peer relationships, school engagement, positive school climate, high academic standards, school policies to reduce bullying, adult positive developmental relationships, psychological and physical care. And those are the protective factors that our prevention nurses have infused into the program that they're going to talk about. And then some of our risk factors that we try to prevent are chronic stress, traumatic events, school violence, peer rejection, social trauma, drug and alcohol using peers, community norms promoting risk, and then school failure. So the purpose of this grant is to really beef up our protective factors in our schools and reduce the risk factors for our students in our schools. So just a little bit of background about brain development. I think it's always important to start with an understanding of how our young students' brains are developed and the impact of drug and alcohol use on that and risky behaviors. So when our babies are born, they're born with a lot of neurons, and those neurons, they have more than that they need. And then over the course of several years, elementary school years, they start this thing called pruning. So neurons are growing and connecting. Positive and negative experiences help with those connections. So positive connections in the brain develop rational thinking and executive functioning and all those things that help with that positive brain development. And negative things, traumatic events, difficult environmental factors, some of those protective or risk factors I talked about have some negative impacts on the brain. So when kids grow, those connections get solidified based on those positive and negative experiences. And then when you get to the age where the brain starts to solidify those connections, some of those neurons, if they don't use them, they go away. So I love this graphic that really talks about how the brain is grown. It's grown from the bottom up. The bottom part of the brain, that is the amygdala, is what directs the emotional response. So we like to refer, when we talk about this with our kids, as that's the accelerator of your brain. That's the part of your brain that makes things feel good. So when kids are having an emotional response or an impulsive response, that's the part of the brain that's really that accelerator. They're doing everything they can to feel good. And then the frontal lobe is the part of the brain that is the rational decision maker. That's the part that tells the amygdala to stop or not do it because it's not it's not beneficial to their health, wellness, and development. And I think the thing that's so fascinating is that this frontal lobe isn't fully developed for kids until their late 20s. So when you think about our kids that are in elementary and middle school and even high school, by age 16, only 50% of that frontal lobe is developed. So I always like to tell staff that, and even my husband, that when my kids did something that they shouldn't have done, and I say, what were you thinking? Well, they actually weren't. They were living on the impulsivity part of their brain, and their frontal lobe, it's a faulty brake. So they have this accelerator and then this faulty brake. So when your kids are doing things and you're not sure why they're doing them, it's because of their brain development. It's not fully formed. So when you're thinking about drug use, this limbic system, or this accelerator part of the brain, is super sensitive to teens. It's known as that pleasure and reward part. And when things feel good, dopamine is released in the brain. So dopamine is that hormone that really helps kids feel good. So they get dopamine hits when they do things like drugs, or when they're on social media and they're getting a lot of likes, or when you eat, you get dopamine. Dopamine is a natural chemical that's released in the brain that helps people feel good. So when you're hungry, dopamine's released. When you're lonely and you get a connection with someone else, dopamine is released. So healthy doses of that are fine. And every brain has a dopamine threshold. So when you are a young developing brain child and you increase that threshold consistently by doing drugs or being addicted to video games or social media, when you're constantly in that dopamine loop, it can damage your brain. So it's important to understand that overuse of dopamine levels through addiction will irreversibly damage the developing brain. So here's a picture of brain development from 10 and 12 until 20. So you can see as the use it or lose it part of their neurons go away, the brain is becoming solidified. So addictions like drug use, social media, and video games are changing the gray matter in kids' brains and developing a connection piece that would likely stick through adulthood if they started doing drugs at an early age, which is why it's so important that when kids are young and their brain is still developing, abstinence is the best thing to keep their brains healthy. So teens, just a couple of things about teens that are at risk. So kids that drink before the age of 15 are 4 times more likely to become addicted than people who start at age 21 because of that structural change in their developing brain. When you add that alcohol, drugs, marijuana, tobacco, it changes the structure as the brain is trying to grow, and it is not many times reversible. Same with marijuana, heavy marijuana use by teens. There's studies that have shown that it reduces IQ levels in kids' brains because it changes the gray matter in their brains. The same thing with tobacco use. So a young brain, excuse me, a young brain, specifically the prefrontal cortex, that learning and development part of the brain, that stops growing when kids use tobacco. So it's really important to understand that a little bit is even too much when kids' brains are still developing. So substance use on these developing brains causes the brain structure to change. The pleasure part of the brain becomes overactive. So kids then become more impulsive than is typical for their age, and they become more of the risk takers. So kids that start risk-taking behaviors early, it tends to be more dangerous. The logical reasoning part of their brain stops growing. And then that rational thought and healthy decisions, it's not able to develop at the level that it should. So we like to say that kids developing brains when they're in middle and high school, they have an overactive accelerator, that impulsivity part of their brain, and a faulty or underdeveloped brake. And we don't want to interrupt the growth of either because we want them to be healthy, functioning adults. So the reason with this prevention grant that we selected our nurses as our mental health folks to support with prevention is that we're shifting our mindset in education, that we really want to have parents and staff understand that we have a job to heal our kids' brains. If they have an overactive amygdala and they're making impulsive decisions, there are things that we can do around sleep, exercise, nutrition, grounding practices to calm the brain, and connection to resources for physical and mental care that can help heal overactive amygdalas, or that pleasure part of the brain. And who better to do that than medical professionals? So that's why we've selected our nurses to help do that instruction. Another reason that we selected nurses is that they're not the administrators. So when kids are engaging in some of these risky behaviors, they're much more apt to build a connection to a nurse because they see them as medical experts, which they are, and develop some of these trusting relationships because they're not seen as the disciplinarians. And our nurses know a lot about the dangers of drug use and the ways that they hurt healthy bodies and growing bodies. So when you look at the protective factors I talked about earlier, prevention nurses engage in all of those with kids that are maybe in a place with their brain development where they're trying things that they shouldn't be trying, and to stop that changing part of their brain. So I'm going to turn it over to Erika and Shannon, our prevention nurses, to talk about more of the specifics of our grant.
Hi, my name's Shannon Johnson. I'm one of the prevention nurses in the Parker region. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about what the school health prevention grant is all about. So the purpose of the school health prevention grant is to increase the presence of school health professionals in our K through 12 schools. It's to provide programming designed to prevent adolescent initiation of substances to middle school students, develop a system to identify students needing substance use interventions, providing identified students with appropriate supports within the school system, and then also providing substance use prevention education for families within the schools. And in Douglas County, we have 2 full-time prevention nurses working in 5 middle schools currently. Combined experience of 41 years of nursing experience. And we also have specialization in mental health nursing and substance abuse. Erika Raschkes is currently working with middle schools in the Castle Rock region, and I work with the middle schools in the Parker region.
Hi, I'm Erika. I am one of the prevention nurses. And so we had 3 kind of categories or tiers that we were working on for our goals for this program. Part of our goal was to work with the students. We also are working with teaching staff different information about what to watch for, and supporting them if they need some help. And we're also providing education to parents or guardians. One of the first things that we did was to train on the Catch My Breath curriculum, which is an evidence-based curriculum that was created by University of Texas. It's an interactive program, so the kids get to participate and work together on some of the projects. There are 4 different modules that they work on over the course of either over 4 days or 4 weeks, depending on how the teacher wants to do it. So the students are getting, it's the 7th grade students that the integrated health and PE teachers are working with. For now, some of the teachers also have been teaching the 8th grade students this year, just because they didn't get the curriculum yet. But starting next year, it will only be 7th grade again. So the curriculum has 4 different modules. One of them talks about the consequences of e-cigarettes. They get to analyze actually the flavor and chemicals that are in e-cigarettes, and how the they're marketed specifically to kids. Then there's also a session on kind of making their own choices. And they kind of write a campaign together in a group to anti-vaping or anti-drug campaign as well. So for the teachers, we created a school newsletter just to have information about the program of what we're doing, and then also educational parts on there. Shannon and I have been at some of the after-school functions that take place, such as 6th grade orientation night, healthy activities night, parent-teacher conferences, just to be available if teachers or parents wanted to speak with us. One of the things we do is connect specifically with families and support with them. And sorry. We also, with the student or the parents that we're working with, we are sending them substance use information and information on how to get help if that's something that they need or desire. So one of the programs that we're doing with the kids is specifically for the kids that have been caught or have a substance use related infraction at school. So they work with me or Shannon, and we have a 3-hour program that we work with them together, one-to-one, generally speaking. It's called Johnny's Ambassadors. That's the name of the program that has 8 online modules that we go through with them. And there's also a 16-page workbook that we will kind of go through with them, and they also take home to be able to work on it with their parents. There's questions that they can work on together. Some of the education topics on the modules are explaining how marijuana impacts the adolescent brain, how it impacts the development of the brain, and how it, some of the bad other impacts that it can cause. It can cause sleepiness. There's also increased risk of, oh wait, sorry, that's not me yet. I think that's you, Shannon.
Not sure. Erika, do you want me to go back? So are we on this slide, or do you want me to go back one?
No, we were on this one. I was going to talk about one more thing, but that's 2 slides down. I forgot.
Okay. All right. Are we
All right.
ready to move to the next slide?
Yes,
Okay.
please.
Okay.
And then the next stage of our prevention grant is working on intensive student support. So this is for students that have been identified as needing more support beyond the 3-hour class that Erika and I are running. And so we do provide an in-school substance prevention group that's run in partnership with All Health Network. And this is with parental consent. If they feel like they would like their student to have weekly follow-up regarding prevention of substance use, but also just coping skills and refusal skills, and hopefully learning some better behaviors. We also provide family support and accessing additional community and mental health resources. And where the prevention nurse also follows up with identified students as needed throughout the school year. Counselors and administration or parents can refer students to us, and we will work with them to keep them on the right track and help them choose healthy behaviors. And substance use, and teen suicide. There's a big link between those two things. And this is something that also we're trying to bring awareness to when we work with the students. Suicide is now the leading cause of death of teens in Colorado. And from 2010 through part of 2022, there were 3,040 deaths that met statutory criteria of suicide in Coloradans younger than age 25. 68.2% had presence of a substance. Marijuana was a substance most commonly found. So I feel like that's important information to know. 9.3% had marijuana only. So one thing we're really trying to emphasize with the students is abstinence has to be the number one thing. A lot of times kids think marijuana and nicotine won't hurt them. There's a lot of myths out there. So we really try to provide an educational environment and be a resource for those students to guide their learning and show them all the facts. And then we've also partnered with Johnny's Ambassadors. So Johnny's Ambassadors educates parents, teens, and communities about the dangers of today's high THC marijuana on adolescent brain development, which Kelly talked about earlier, psychosis and suicide. Curriculum is used in our Alternative to Suspension program. And we've been partnering with Laura Stack, bestselling author and CEO of Johnny's Ambassadors, to bring educational assemblies to middle schools on the dangers of substance use. And she's a really great speaker if you ever have a chance to hear her.
So hi, my name is Alissa Huff, and I am a community health educator with the Douglas County Health Department. I just wanted to speak to some of the work we do and how it ties into the work that is being done through the Douglas County School District's middle school pilot program for substance use prevention. Excluding prescription medication, Kelly, can you go back one? There we go. Excluding prescription medication, alcohol, tobacco, and cannabis are the most common drugs used by adolescents and teenagers. And it's important when I refer to tobacco, that includes any product containing nicotine, such as combustible cigarettes, e-cigarettes, or vapes, and smokeless tobacco. Young people use drugs for many reasons, for fun, for curiosity, to feel part of a group, or to cope with stress, anxiety, or emotional pain. Every odd numbered year, the state administers the Healthy Kids Colorado survey on the health and well-being of young people. This survey helps guide programs and support efforts for youth in the community. In the fall of 2021, nearly 107,000 youth at 340 middle and high schools in Colorado were surveyed. And this is the most recent data that is available publicly. According to the Healthy Kids Colorado survey in 2021, 3.9% of middle school students had one or more drinks in the past 30 days. 5.7% of middle school students used electronic vapor products one or more times in the past 30 days. 1.3% of middle school students smoked one or more days in the last, or one or more cigarettes in the last 30 days. And 3% of middle school students used marijuana one or more times in the past 30 days. The good news is that current substance use rates are declining in the state of Colorado. While we don't fully know the why behind this decline, other Healthy Kids Colorado survey results point to a continued large-scale social disruption for youth at this stage of the COVID-19 pandemic, despite being back at school. It's important to remember when talking to youth that 2 out of 3 youth do not currently use substances. This reminder is valuable because a lot of youth feel like everyone is doing it, and they feel social pressure to conform. So while substance use trends are declining, we need to keep in mind that our work is far from done. Education and awareness efforts are still crucial towards bringing down percentage use rates even further. One is too many. Here at the Douglas County Health Department, we recently completed a tobacco-focused community profile as part of our work through the State Tobacco Education Prevention Program. We hosted a youth focus group with 11 Douglas County high school students who described vaping as very prevalent and one of the biggest issues among youth in Douglas County. Our youth focus group participants and several key informants shared that education about smoking and vaping is needed at a younger age to prevent addiction. By high school, it is considered too late, as many teenagers are already battling substance use disorders. A substance use disorder is a diagnosable pattern of using a substance that disrupts a young person's ability to work or go to school, or engage in satisfying relationships or participate in their usual daily activities. Next slide, Kelly. According to the Mental Health First Aid Council, approximately 10.2% of youth will be diagnosed with a substance use disorder during their lifetime. In order to prevent substance use disorders, it's important to engage youth early in prevention education. This education can reduce risky behaviors before they lead to injury. The Douglas County Health Department values our partnership with the Douglas County School District to create prevention education opportunities for youth, parents or guardians, and the greater Douglas County community. I will now turn it back over to Anne, who I believe will lead us through our questions portion of the webinar.
Thank you, Alissa. Looks like we do have 2 questions from our viewers. The first one is, why would we wait until a student has a school infraction before providing individualized instruction? It sounds like the individual instruction provides additional information and reasoning why the student should avoid substances.
Do you want me to take that one?
Sure.
Well, it follows our multi-tiered systems of support that we do in Douglas County and actually nationally. So we provide prevention information to all students, and students who need more than that through identifying processes would get an additional layer. So it's how we provide support for all kids. So it's a tiered approach.
Thanks, Kelly.
Not all kids would need that intensive or targeted training.
Okay, we have another question. How does the program and education touch on the different types of marijuana usage? For example, smoking versus edible use.
Shannon and Erika, do you want to jump in on that one?
Sure, I can answer that. So when we go through the kids that have had the school infractions, through our 3-hour class, we do talk about different classes of drugs and different types of marijuana. Johnny's Ambassadors talks about the different kinds of marijuana, from the marijuana that was available in the 1990s to how it's changed to today's marijuana, along with edibles and the dangers there. Even to the fact that one vape has as much nicotine as a whole pack of cigarettes. So we try to educate the kids on just the differences in different drugs and what they're putting in their bodies.
Thanks,
And
Shannon.
that's tier 2, the part that we're doing with the Johnny's Ambassadors. That is also part of that program, is to keep our kids in school. So it's an alternative to suspension. So they either have no suspension or a reduced suspension, depending on what they were using. And so that we can, again, just keep them in school and educate them while they're one-on-one with them.
Thanks, Erika. We have an additional question asking is if there is a program in the Highlands Ranch area, specifically Ranch View.
So not yet. So our goal is to get data on this pilot program and expand it to all of our middle schools. So it's not at Ranch View yet, no.
Thanks, Kelly. Okay, we have another question. Is the 7th grade Catch My Breath curriculum taught in charter schools as well? is it one class or is it an ongoing series throughout the year?
As far as charter schools, you would have to reach out to the charter. This is just our neighborhood schools right now in the pilot. And as far as ongoing, Erika and Shannon, do you want to answer that of how many times it's taught during the year? I think you touched on it a little bit, but.
Yeah, I can answer that. So it is taught to all seventh graders in the grant schools. So it's one class and there's 4 of them. So some schools are doing it one class a week for 4 weeks. Another school might do all 4 modules in 1 week. But each module is 50 minutes, so it's a complete lesson. And it goes over, it's focused on vaping. So vaping prevention, and they do talk a little bit about marijuana in that. So all 7th graders, and I think Erika mentioned before, we do have some 8th graders that have gotten it this year because they didn't obviously have the chance to have it last year.
Gotcha. And we have another question, kind of wrapping around to our original question, asking to clarify if there are different types of marijuana that are not discussed with the students unless they have an infraction.
Do you want me to answer that, Kelly?
Yes, please. Yes.
So as part of Catch My Breath is taught to all students. And they do talk about different kinds of marijuana as far as marijuana that you can vape. We also at several of our grant schools have brought in Johnny's Ambassadors as a assembly for all students. And during those assemblies, they do talk about the different forms of marijuana to all students. So we are trying to do that as prevention instead of waiting until students have an infraction to provide that education for everyone. And that is something that will grow as our pilot program grows.
Yes, it is part of the curriculum that they are doing. Part of that program, they do talk about different forms of the marijuana, how it can be ingested.
Thank you. We have another question about if there's a prevention nurse in the Highlands Ranch area. I think we alluded to that earlier, but I'll let.
Not yet. Our hope is that we're going to be expanding the program to all middle schools, but we're starting small to make sure that we can manage our goals in the grant, and then our hope is to expand.
And another viewer is asking if data from the youth survey in the future, if we will be seeing new data from that, and if so, what is the time frame for that?
That's an excellent question. So we're just getting our reports back and we're looking at them right now. So hopefully spring they'll be posted. They get posted on the CDPHE website. So it will be this school year that we'll be able to report that out.
Thanks. All right, we have another question regarding the information that's being shared with parents, and in respect to these programs, are parents of the students, are they being provided the information that the students are learning about so they can reinforce what's being taught at school?
Shannon and Erika.
So when they work individually with Shannon and I, yes, we do talk to the parents about what we are educating the students on, and they go home with some information pamphlets to go over with their students. There's actually discussion questions that are part of the program. And the Catch My Breath material is based on, I think, what the teachers are doing as far as how much information they're sharing with the parents of their students.
We also have participated, like was said earlier by Erika, in several community nights, parent-teacher conference nights, to try to provide parents information about what is being taught in the schools, what we're seeing in the schools. We're also available to talk to parents at any time about any concerns they have related to their student, whether their student has an infraction at school or not. So we can be a resource to students, parents, and staff. And so parents can reach out at any time as well. We also have sent out some educational material through the school newsletters in our 5 grant schools for parents on drug use in the schools, what we're seeing, and specifically on vaping, because that seems to be the biggest concern right now in the middle schools.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. Oh, we do have another question. It is, okay, and I think we have discussed this, but is the Catch My Breath curriculum, oops, sorry about that, it disappeared. Is the Catch My Breath curriculum taught at all of the public middle schools in the district?
No, just in the pilot schools right now, but our hope is when we expand it, it can be in all the middle schools. But all the middle schools do have access to Johnny's Ambassadors assemblies. So if your school has not communicated that they have an assembly yet, reach out to them and ask when it will be, because Laura Stack is doing it in all of the middle and high schools this year through a grant from the Douglas County.
On a side note, we did hold a parent university with Laura Stack last academic year. I don't remember exactly what month it was, but if you do go to the parent university website, you can find a wonderful explanation from her. And we definitely support everything she does to help our school district. And we have additional question. Okay, I think we have answered these, but we'll go back again. Are all of the middle schools in Parker and Castle Rock included in this pilot program? And if not, which schools are included?
Shannon and Erika, do you want to talk about your schools?
Yeah. So in the Parker region, Sierra and Cimarron were the original pilot schools for Parker. And we did just add Sagewood in January. So I'm just getting started at Sagewood, been there about a month. And in Castle Rock, Mesa Middle School and Castle Rock Middle School are the 2 schools in Castle Rock.
Great, thank you. Just, oh, yep, we've got one more question coming in. Okay. Question is, what is the targeted duration of the pilot program, and at what point will funding run out?
So it's a 3-year grant, and this is a grant that CDE has had for, I think this is cycle 7. So it's been kind of ongoing, so we can never fully rely that it's going to happen, but it's been going on for quite some time. So if we're offered it again in 2.5 years, we'll definitely apply for it. But the whole point of a grant is to give you time to build a sustainable program. So our goal, whether we get the grant or not, is to sustain this work in all of our middle schools. So it's really only been, 5 months that we've been doing it. So the impact that we've been able to do so far, and even bringing on an additional school, has been incredible thanks to these 2 ladies. So our goal is, even if we were not able to have access to the grant in the future, that it would continue. That's the goal of any grant. Great question.
I'm getting some thank yous to everyone for your time, information, and patience answering all of the questions. And that's what we're here for, is to provide answers for you. So hopefully you found out what you were looking for. I'm trying to see if we have any more questions coming in. I don't see any right now. I did have someone ask if this webinar recording will be shared, and it will. You can find it posted soon, hopefully by tomorrow, on our Parent University website, as well as this particular recording will be sent directly to the email that you registered with for the webinar. So it's very easy to find. If for some reason you can't find it, my email has been included in all of the webinar information, and I'd be happy to help you out. Let's see. Oh, got another comment. Thank you for this information and your work on this matter. And definitely, Shannon and Erika, thank you for what you do as prevention nurses. I always say nursing and teaching are the hardest jobs in the world. So thank you for what you do. And let's see if we have any
I
more.
just, I just wanted to point out one thing, that Shannon and I love working with the students. The students that we've been working one-on-one with have been fantastic. They've listened to everything that we've talked about. They've been engaged in the program. And we definitely want the program to expand, and we really look forward to the opportunity to work in the other schools.
Thank you. And hopefully that's the direction we'll be going with this. Definitely important, especially the information that Laura Stack has emphasized over and over again. There's so much to learn, and obviously prevention is critical. And I have another thank you so much for keeping the kids safe and guiding them through the teenage years, which we all know is challenging. So, okay, I think we'll go ahead and wrap it up. I'm not seeing any additional questions come in. Thank you also to Kelli and Alissa for your contribution. And our next parent university is planned for March 27th on the topic of sensory regulation and self-regulation in preschool age students. So you can find out more information for that through emails, newsletters, and our social media channels. And thank you also to Skyridge Medical Center, who is our partner for Parent University. And we hope everybody has a wonderful evening. Thank you again for your time, and we hope to see you soon. Good night.